Cooking a standing rib roast, also known as prime rib, can strike fear into the heart of any cook because this is a very expensive cut of meat and you don't want to screw it up. But luckily, Bridget's here to show us how easy it really is.
No anxiety.
No anxiety.
No fear. And actually, the better the piece of meat, there's all this flavor built inside. We don't have to add all these bells and whistles. Basically, we're going to leave it alone as much as possible. But you do have to start off with the right cut of meat. So you can buy these. It's a boneless prime rib. We want you to order a first cut prime rib. But let's talk about this. This is the second cut here. You can see there's a small little muscle right in the center. That's the ribeye. That's the part of meat everybody wants.
That's the good part.
It's so tender and juicy. We want more of that. So we're going to go with a first cut. Now again, this is the ribeye. It's almost the entire thing here. So this is you can go up to 5.5 pound rib roast. You want to order one, you can actually see it right here, that has a good amount of fat on it.
Oh yeah.
But we want to take some of it off of here. It's not all going to render away. I'm going to take a very sharp knife. You want to leave a 1/4 inch on there after you've trimmed it. And I like to use a sharp boning knife for this. It's nice and flexible. You're going to take away the fat, but not take away the meat. And it's better to make shallow cuts as you go along. And some areas will have a little bit more. It's okay if you expose some of that meat. This is getting pretty good. Now, the rest of this roast, we want to create a cross-hatch pattern. All that fat on the cap, it's not only going to cook up into this big, beautiful crackling, but it's also going to allow our seasonings to penetrate the top of the meat. We want to space our cuts about 1 inch apart, and I always like to make my first cut right from one corner to the other, and I'm being careful not to go too far into the meat. I don't want to create a whole bunch of exit channels for that juice to come out. You just want to go on a diagonal, again, about 1 inch apart. All right, and same thing, we're gonna go corner to corner. Really sharp knife for this. You definitely wanna use a sharp chef's knife. Sometimes I use a slicing knife too. That is looking good.
Oh, it's great.
Now we want to season it. We're going to use kosher salt, and this is 2 tablespoons. Now we wanna season the whole thing, so I'll start on the bottom. Just work it in there, sides. Now I am gonna work it into the cross-hatching as well. That's looking great. All right, so we haven't forgotten about these trimmings. We're gonna use these for the Yorkshire pudding, but we want to cut them into about 1/2 inch pieces. All right, so this is looking good. I've got a lot more than I need for this recipe. I do need about 3/4 cup or 3 ounces of trimmings. That looks just about right. The rest of it, I'm gonna go throw in the freezer.
Yeah, save it.
Now, we're gonna go ahead and cover this with plastic wrap, and then the beef roast, we're gonna leave as is, unwrapped, but we're gonna put both of these in the refrigerator for at least 24 hours and up to 4 days in advance. Now that's really important because you want that salt to have plenty of time to work its way into the meat. So into the fridge it goes.
Okie doke.
All right, so you can see what the roast looks like after it's been in the fridge for 24 hours. It's dried out a little bit on the top. That's actually really, really good because we want that surface to get nice and crisp. It's time to roast.
All right.
So we have a roasting pan.
Imagine that.
And here is the 3/4 cup of the fat that I cut earlier. Those little beef trimmings, gonna scatter them all over the pan. Now we went ahead and greased the pan too. We don't want anything sticking to this because we're going to be using that to make our Yorkshire pudding.
Ooh.
V-rack goes into the pan. Roast goes onto the V-rack.
Oh.
One last thing to do before it hits the oven. Yes, thank you. You are the pepper grinder.
Yes.
A nice shower of pepper on
Say
top.
when.
That's great. This is going to be slow roasted. It's a 250-degree oven. As there's an enzyme in the meat that's activated at lower temperatures, so the longer we keep it there, the more tender the meat's gonna be. For medium rare, we want to cook this until it's about 120. But it's gonna spend about 2.5 to 3 hours in the oven.
A good long time.
Finally, Yorkies.
Yorkshire pudding.
Yorkshire pudding. Now, it's a pudding in the instance that you make a custard. That's why they're called puddings. It's not a dessert. This is 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and this is a tablespoon more of the kosher salt. We use some on the roast. Some's going to go in here. We'll whisk this together. All right, let's move on over to our eggs and milk. This is going to be a bit looser of a batter than some Yorkshire pudding batters that we found because we want it to be custardy on the inside. Really good Yorkshire pudding should have a shell on the outside, a little chewy and a little custardy on the inside. We're gonna use 4 eggs here, and we're gonna whisk in 4 cups of whole milk. Let me just break up these yolks a little bit. Go for it. That is it.
All right.
Looks like eggnog. We're gonna whisk this in gradually. Make sure it's all incorporated, and we'll start to see a batter come together. All right, so that looks great. Now, I'm gonna cover this with a little bit of plastic. If we were gonna use this within an hour, we would just let it rest at room temp. But since the roast is in there for a couple of hours, we're gonna put it in the fridge.
All right.
So again, it's gotta rest at least 1 hour. All right, it's been about 2.5 hours. I'm gonna take the roast out, but while I'm there, I need you to do some work.
All right.
Can you crank the oven up to 425?
You got it.
I think you can handle it. Hello.
Oh, that smells good. 425, you said.
Yes, please.
Ooh, that looks good.
It is so good. Now, it's not quite done yet, and this top is going to get beautifully crackled a little later on, but we do need to check the temp. We're looking again for medium rare, fingers crossed, 120-ish. Right into the thickest part. Sweet. It's ready to come out of the pan. I'm going to use the tongue and fork method. There we go. We're gonna have a little bit of spillage there. That's okay. Now we wanna let this rest for a good hour. Don't wanna tuck into this meat right away. All the juices will come out. So I've got a fine mesh strainer. Would you mind helping me out there?
Absolutely.
All right, just scraping any of those crackling down in there.
Those would be amazing on a salad after you crisp them up.
We are looking for about 6 tablespoons of fat. In this case, we're just a little off, and that's totally fine. You can use a little bit of vegetable oil. I'm gonna go right in between 1/4 and 1/2. That would be 6 tablespoons. And this goes right back into the pan. We need to, again, wait for that oven to come up to 425 before we put our pan in there. We want that fat to get super, super hot because it needs to be. Once that custard hits it, it's gonna create steam, and that's how you get lift. All right, so just a couple minutes until that oven comes up to temp.
All right. Oh, you can see it's just smoking.
That's a good sign. Super hot. And I am going to put my towel on this to remind me not to grab it.
Yes.
Now, quickly, we need to go over to the Yorkshire pudding batter and give it a quick whisk just to recombine it. Sometimes as it sits in the fridge, it separates a little bit. There we go. Now, into the hot pan, right into the center. You can hear a little bit of that. That's a good sign. This is going to go back into that 425-degree oven. Now, it's going to stay in there until it gets golden brown. You can see it puffed around the edges. Be a little bit sunken in the center. That's going to take about 40 to 45 minutes.
All right.
All right, Julia, so the pudding has about 15 more minutes left to cook, but in the meantime, we're going to sear the roast.
Yeah.
Now I have a tablespoon of vegetable oil heating in this 12-inch skillet. It's over medium heat. I want to get it to the point where it just starts to smoke. That's how we'll know that the pan and the oil are hot enough to give the meat a good sear.
All right.
Keep an eye on that. In
You
the
got it.
meantime, voila, it's still there.
Oh, and it's still gorgeous.
It's still gorgeous. It's rested for a good hour. Now, I do want to pat it dry so it doesn't steam in the pan. It's going to get some good color.
Ooh, that fat's gonna cook up nice.
So into the pan it goes. There we go.
Oh,
We're going to let this color on all sides. We want to get a nice crust all over the roast. That's going to take about 5 to 7 minutes.
now that is a thing of beauty.
Gorgeous, right? Time to get it out of the skillet.
I'll hold the skillet for you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and make a quick jus. I have over here 1 onion that we've chopped fine. I'm gonna add this right to the flavorful fat. And I'll cook this still over medium-high heat. Now the liquid that's gonna come out of the onions, I'll use that to deglaze the pan and scrape up any brown bits. This is gonna take about 3 minutes until the onions are softened. All right, still scraping away.
Smells good.
Let's move over just for a moment. We want to thicken this, but not too much. Just give it a little bit of body. Again, it's not a gravy, it's a jus. I have here a teaspoon of cornstarch and 2.5 cups of beef broth. Add that together and whisk it. De-lump it. Let's pour this into the skillet. And this is really where we can start to pull up some of the brown bits on the bottom of that pan. I'm also going to add a tiny little sprig of thyme. It's great when you use the whole sprig, it's easy to fish out, plus the stem gives tons of flavor. We're gonna bring this to a boil. Once there, I'll reduce the heat to medium-low. We're gonna simmer this until it reduces and thickens. That's gonna take about 5 to 7 minutes.
It smells so good.
You can see it's actually thickened just a little bit. I'm gonna strain it right into this fine mesh strainer.
Here, I'll hold it for you.
Thank you. Catch all the onion and that little bit of thyme. Press on the bottom here, make sure I extract all that beautiful jus. Now I'm gonna keep a lid on it, just so it stays nice and warm.
All right.
Okay, in the meantime, It's rested just that little bit while we were making the jus. Now, with cuts like this that do have a little bit of marbling and fat, we like to keep the slices on the larger side. About 3/4 inch is fine.
Yes.
Yes.
Baby. That is perfection.
It kind of is.
Ugh, it is pink all the way through. There's no gray band whatsoever. It's a perfect medium rare.
I'm gonna keep on carving this and we can clean up and then we'll be ready for the pudding.
Ooh, yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
And that's that magic of that hot, hot fat. We added the batter in it, created steam. You get that beautiful puffing. Just taking a knife, going right in there.
Oh,
Now you can cut this into smaller pieces for company, larger pieces, one whole one for yourself.
oh. The bigger, the better.
Ready to serve.
All right, I've got some plates here.
Fantastic. Roast beef for you.
That is such a gorgeous piece of beef.
All right, let me give you an inside piece there. And then
Little jus.
little jus. All right, and if that wasn't enough, we've got a little bit of horseradish sauce for you as well.
I love that sauce. In fact, you can find a recipe for this on the website.
You don't even need that knife for that meat. It cuts like butter. I mean, super silky. Oh,
So good.
check out that Yorkshire pudding. See how nice and moist it is on the inside?
Yeah,
too?
look at that creamy bit.
Yes, still a little eggy, a little custardy.
For the ultimate boneless rib roast with Yorkshire pudding, start by salting the beef and save the fat trimmings. Roast the beef in a very low oven with the trimmings in the bottom of the pan. While the beef rests, whisk the pudding batter and cook it right in the pan with the drippings. Before serving, sear the beef on the stovetop, then use that fond for a quick jus. From Cook's Country, a top drawer recipe for boneless rib roast with Yorkshire pudding and jus. This is amazing.
I think we're gonna have to work on your British accent, though. Right, Governor? Thanks for watching Cook's Country from America's Test Kitchen. So what'd you think?
Leave a comment and let us know which recipes you're excited to make, or just say hi.
Now you can find links to today's recipes and reviews in the video description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
See you later.
Alligator.